Thank you, Freya. Thank you, Parasite, for having me here. Let me try to get my slide up. And for this presentation, I need to also thank a lot of friends and artist friends who share their experience about some of the participation or just experience in one of the exhibition I am going to talk about. So actually, the title for this panel is "Exhibition as Size for Direct Political Action," and I would like to actually interpret the term exhibition in a more like a broader sense, instead of, well, besides exhibition in gallery, exhibition venues, I would also like to talk, have case referring to the act of exhibiting an idea with pretty strong visual impact, let's say. And for the and actually, you can also see my subtitle, the myth making or art making in relation to cultural identity development and the political movement in Hong Kong at the moment. I think it somehow also actually relate to the rewriting of history and also the fiction writing a lot. And in the following, actually, it is also kind of my personal reflection upon the recent umbrella movement in Hong Kong, which I think has not ended, but well, the Occupy movement within the umbrella movement probably has ended, but then more political reform has been, taking place, going on in the city. Let's go to the first slide. And actually, this is the first case I'm going to talk about. So this is, for those who don't know yet, this is the Lion Rock. And for Hong Kong people, the spirit of the Lion Rock has been, one of the really common, let's say, knowledge, or we can also interpret it as a myth for a lot of people in Hong Kong, especially the earlier. Well, the elder generation, let's say the elder generation and since the 70s, when one of the TV soap opera, well, not soap opera, but TV series about the lion, it's called Under the Lion Rock, talking about a lot of local lives in the city. And one of the basic idea behind this spirit is about how we in this city, in Hong Kong, have the equal opportunity to, if we work hard enough, then we actually can, achieve, economically, socially, get the socio-economical advancement. So it's been quite the phenomenon. And so by hanging the banner, by the way, I need to also mention, so when was this banner hung up over there? And you can say, you can actually also see this banner was actually huge, 6 meters by 28. And the Chinese slogan on top is saying, "I want a true or real universal suffrage." Yeah. And actually, it's not declared to be an art piece at all, okay? But it was hung on the Lion Rock by a group of rock climbers. They call themselves the Spider-Man on the 23rd of October in 2014. And last year, the Occupy movement in Hong Kong actually started on the 28th of September. So you can kind of imagine, about almost 1 month after the beginning of the Occupy movement. Actually, some people in town were feeling kind of stuck. And actually, the gesture of just basically hanging this banner up actually was quite, for a lot of us, I think, quite emotional. And also an encouragement, actually, for people, and also, for that solidarity also. But I actually also actually at the moment want to suggest that perhaps actually the banner itself is also another creation of another myth, no? But then maybe the best way to actually go against a previous myth is to reconstruct or to recreate another myth in our culture. And why is it another myth? Well, on the slogan, it stated that I want the true or real universal suffrage. What does it mean by I? Who am I? The subjectivity, the identity, where is it? Like, how to define it, And if we really want the political reform in the town, probably not just that every individual thinking of his or her own way of the political reform would be sufficient, no? It should be a collective, no? So why not we want a real or true universal suffrage? And by the way, what is real and true? It's quite, we need a lot of time actually to sort it out, let's say. And so I want to suggest that maybe it's also, another mythical utopian idea, to cover the previous myth, in which we probably thought that we keep on working, we work hard enough, then we would be successful one day. But it didn't quite work out there. And then let's see what will happen later on. Yeah, well, not yet. We'll see. Also, the I actually here relating to identity and subjectivity is actually quite important, I want to say. And relating to the term in the title, direct political action, first of all, I would take our path through it, toward it, in a more indirect way. Sorry, by first of all referring to the cultural identities development in town. And so when I was thinking about this whole question about the development of the local identity, cultural identity, then I actually got an idea to trace back to the 1997, when Hong Kong was handed over from British, to China. One of the myths that I actually studied in school with my textbook before the 1997 period was like this. Actually, there was a class, a subject called EPA, Economics and Public Affairs. And there was this curriculum, and one of the focus to talk about the Hong Kong history was that, Hong Kong basically was a fishing village, and then it became the industrial and then trading and financial hub. And so it was the story I was told in textbook. And it's not only in school, I would like to emphasize, but actually if you want to, you can also check out the tourism board's websites nowadays. And it's the boat, the fishing boat is still there. on the page. So it's still here, this myth, But what was before the fishing village? Or did we actually have other groups of people farming, for example, agriculture? Was agriculture important in this place before, a long time ago? What happened? Was it just, sort of a no one's town, and then suddenly, because of the colonial government coming in, then it developed. So this is what actually a group of artists and curator Oscar Ho, and with his friends who were not only artists, but also include some local cultural workers, people who actually from the field of literature, and also basically from the other from the whole cultural industry. Let's say not only visual arts. I want to emphasize. This is the story. In a talk at the retrospective exhibition of Oscar Ho at Parasite in 2004, Oscar actually kind of was recalling about the story, like how did they start the whole idea of this exhibition, Museum 97, History, Community, Individual exhibition. So he was recalling that how he and Liang Mendo like chat together. Liang Mendo is a really important like cultural critic, let's say, in Hong Kong. And now he also has a lot of works and jobs in the mainland. So Liang Mendo was talking about that, there was, they heard that there was a minority group in China, which was kind of disappearing for various reasons. But then this group was actually rewriting its own history and also rediscovering its origin. So this kind of rewriting of history actually inspired them to actually formulate this exhibition in 1997. And actually there were many layers, but I would only focus on the museum section 1, the pre-97 Hong Kong History Museum. The museum section 1, the prehistoric Hong Kong Museum. Because in this section, actually they invent the story of one of the character called Lo Ting. And over here you can see an image of such by an artist, Hao Junming. Yeah, actually from Taiwan. It was a print, but it's a design of the character by him. So this character actually is like half fish, half human. Portrayed here, you can see the human head, but then also it has the fishy tail. Some snapshot of the exhibition. Besides the part of the Lo Ting story, there were also other portions. For example, this one belonged to the session called 香港三世今日昨日昨日今日明日 past, present, and future. So you can see a lot of small, I think they're like small pieces of paper hung up on the wall. And in this session, actually, the curatorial team invited a lot of artists in Hong Kong. And then they gave them probably like 3 pieces of in my interpretation, like 3 pieces of worksheets, like 3 pieces of A4 paper. And then to ask them to actually reconstruct what was the past of Hong Kong and then also tell us about the today and also the future. So this part of it. And then there was also another section about the community. So Oscar Ho also, in another section of the exhibition, invited basically any member of the general public to contribute an item they thought would be quite important for the 1997's Museum of Hong Kong. So there were many different layers and dimensions. And also some artists were invited to respond to some particular local figures. For example, one local figure was basically an old lady living in town. And they were trying to see how an ordinary old lady in towns would have different kind of story. And one of the, for example, one group of artists, Leung Bo San and Jie Yim On, they were responding to another previous artist story. Okay, but I kind of skip all these other layers, but go to the story of Lo Ting. Actually, before this exhibition, there wasn't discussion in town at all about this figure. So why is it important, huh? Okay, so after the Liang Mendo, Oscar, and actually Dong Kai Zhang, who is a famous writer in Hong Kong, he also was involved in the invention of this history. So after they had the chat and thought of the reinvention of this origin of Hong Kong people and perhaps also the cultural identity, for Hong Kong people. So they kind of started to research. And there were actually some texts from the older days from the Qing dynasty in which they found some of the literature in the Canton area actually talk about, this kind of fishy human, maybe you can say mermaid. But then Oscar also at one point in his writing talked about that he didn't want it to be like the Western mermaid. So they actually reinvented it with the character, you see here is more, with a more traditional Chinese style. Yeah, I think it's important. So basically they were, they found some texts about Lo Ting, about this character in the south of China, and actually along of Lantau Island, it probably appeared, a long time ago, and it actually swam, but then somehow it can also live on the land, and it's really like mythical character. So later on, they also, the writers wrote about the stories, and in the catalog of the exhibition, mainly you can find a lot of texts. Some are probably like historical texts from, for example, from the older texts from the previous dynasties, and then some texts actually were invented by the team. And then based on that idea and story, they invited different artists to actually construct an exhibition together. Okay. So in the 1997 version, they invited different artists and also artist groups to contribute and as a kind of fake artifact to put together, different pieces about this character Lo Ting. So for example, what would this Lo Ting eat in the old days? And how it lived. So each artist team or each artist who joined this project helped to kind of reinvent or basically invent, this kind of let's say fake artifacts to help to tell the story visually. Okay, so it's not only about writing, but they also want the visual, the material. And you can also see in one of the exhibition shots here, the lighting and also kind of the set on the left-hand side. Although I don't really have the information about what it is, but it really reminds me of the setting in the Heritage and History Museum. Yeah, the yellow light, and then you see the set kind of try to represent some sort of the living condition of this character. And also, well, three-dimensional character was created also. Yeah, so it's not a mermaid. Yeah, it's a Lo Ting. Yeah, it's Lo Ting. They really want to emphasize it, and then they also kind of have the visual about in the background. Here, here are a few more images. In the middle of it here, I know about this story, so maybe I can share with you. This is actually the project by Phoebe Wong and Lydia. They were thinking about, let's see, they were making like some sort of fish ball. Thinking about what kind of food Lo Ting would eat, and then they put it up actually also in the exhibition to share with the audience. So it's a closer look of it. But I haven't been able to find even more images from this exhibition in the 1997. But their story didn't end here. So they kind of continue the reinvention of this Lo Ting story. Let's look at one quote from Raimundas from this 1997 exhibit catalog. To believe in myths is to believe in an imaginary real. And that is the same with history. And a constructive imagination would help determine, what we can or cannot see in history. So, so it was, by the way, it was in the Hong Kong Art Center in Wan Chai. So it was an exhibition occupying like 2 to 3 floors. It was quite big, involving a lot of artists. But it didn't stop in 1997. Oscar Ho and his team actually wanted to probably develop even more. So in the year of 1998, we can see further development of such. They were working with a team of artists, including Ya Lao. Ya Lao literally can be translated to be the 20th floor. So basically, this was a group of artists from the Chinese University Fine Arts Department. And then they were helping Oscar and Leung and the curatorial team to invent even more artifacts. But then in this case, they had a different kind of concept. They want to actually present it as more like an education corner, like such would be in a history museum. So the emphasis would be about really the experience for like school kids, students. But I think you can also see some of, from this image, sort of also understand how previously in the 1997 exhibitions, some of the fake artifacts would be actually displayed. So in here, you can also see they kind of imitate the style in a history museum, and to put the glass with the glass box covering the artifact, and with the lighting to help. So they also have this part in the 1998 exhibition about Loteng. So some more example to let you see, to have a feel of it. Yeah, but as I mentioned, because experience was also important, so at a different corner of the exhibition, they also construct some other installation to help the visitors. And they did invite a lot of school kids, from the photo you can see, to have to experience. For example, I guess this is when the kids can also try to walk, really dangerously along the cliff, and really by the sea. And also they could also try on a fish tail behind them to experience, to be a Loteng, maybe, perhaps, and. And it didn't stop. The third actually came in 1999 at the experimental gallery, actually also at Hong Kong Art Center, where Oscar Ho was actually the director at the moment. So in this third show of the series, it focused on another, one of the stories of Loteng, which was the massacre. The big killing scene in 1197. I tried to find out if it was true or not, but I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure. But probably some kind of war and battle happened in the Lantau Island or Canton area around that year. But I'm not exactly sure about like how much of the information would be really like real from this show. And actually it was interesting to also hear Oscar Ho talking about remembering, from the exhibition. He actually saw visitors coming in to see the show. It's common. And then one day he saw like a parent with a kid, the child, to come into the show. And the father was really like seriously explaining different information about the story, about the Loteng, about the history to the child. And Oscar at some point felt a bit sorry, maybe. But this is not, maybe it's not true, Don't explain it this way. And then of course there were also people asking or criticizing this kind of faking history. But then I think we can, we all know that this probably is a joke, but then also at the same time, also is a way to question what history should be or could be or can be, Okay, furthermore, just let you see more images from, so if you remember, actually this painting actually appeared also in the first exhibition in 1997 by an artist called Wang Hoi. Actually a mainland artist, but who was actually working based in Hong Kong around those years of time. Now he actually, I think he's back home. So just let you see more. So basically the exhibition design was still kind of imitating sort of the history and heritage museum style. More or less on that line. But in this third exhibition in the series, they also especially try to invent, or let's say to associate this story of Loteng with another kind of a cultural tour experience. So they actually also created a kind of cultural tour to invite the general public to join the tour, to visit on site, visiting some archaeological finding, if you may. I will see some images. So some model to show, and also you can see the fishy character Loteng. Yeah, again, it's here. And so you see on the left-hand side, you can see the board where, let me enlarge some of the, so they actually did visit the site, and then how they actually, rode a fishing boat and go to the Lantau Island to actually try to discover different kind of artifacts from the old days, and they were looking really seriously. However, you can see this is Oscar Ho over here, holding the mic with a really low-tech kind of style. I don't know what kind, maybe some kind of bamboo stick with the mic. It's really interesting. Yeah. So this is in the catalog of that retrospective exhibition of Oscar at Parasite in 2004, Mapping Identities. Actually, David Clark, Professor Clark, he had, recall some of the, let's say, some of the time, and he says, with the handover now, well, 2004, now 7 years behind us, it has become a bit unfashionable to talk about Hong Kong cultural identity. And many people, artists included, he saw, actually see it as, an issue belong to the 90s. So I want to quote this and let you know that actually after the year of 1997, it was really interesting or awkward, strange, to see that the discussion about the political issue and the local identity was certainly, kind of gone, kind of disappearing. And then not until actually, let's say 2003, and then later on we had other kind of local movements to protect the local heritage, then more discussion about the local identity actually came back again. So it was kind of like the time, in 2004. And why would I want to point it out? Because when I was trying to find more information about this Loteng series, I was expecting that, then in the economic journal like Sun Bo, which is a newspaper that has been covering a lot of local cultural events daily, and I thought, over there I must be able to find quite extensive information about this show, because to me it was quite important with a lot of artists, and romantically speaking, they were all collectively constructing some kind of cultural identity for the whole city. Isn't it amazing? But I wasn't able to find, for example, I was looking for for example, exhibition review, in that newspaper, but around the year of 1997's June and July, where the first exhibition took place, I couldn't really find it. Of course, I found a bit basic information of the exhibition. But I also heard that actually there were a lot of reporters reporting about this exhibition. And actually a lot of them, I also found out that were international art journals, also maybe press from the other countries. So I was questioning, so what's going on? Why wasn't it, I'm sorry, having even more influence in town, for the people here? And by the way, although I was born in 1997 already, I didn't see the exhibition either. But just let you know. So I in the past few months, I also tried to conduct more sort of an informal survey, let's say. Actually, yes, mostly for those who work in the cultural industry in Hong Kong, they would heard about Loteng, this character, and mostly also, know about this exhibition, although probably not, everyone has seen it, because are quite young, actually. But then I also try to ask the other, my relatives, sometimes, and other friends not in the arts, and And what do they have in mind would be quite, actually, they don't know about it. This is actually another, and then in 2014, last year, before the Occupy movement came up, actually Raimundas and Oscar and Chen Bengqiu, another really key figure in the local theater scene, they had a forum. And Raimundas recalling that, around those years, in 1997, somehow we were not so political, although the exhibition itself was quite actually political. But I think what he means here, apolitical, refer to not having, for example, having the discussion about cultural identity, having the exhibition about the development of or the question about local identity, did not somehow trigger some direct political action. What's going on? What's going on? Well, perhaps for my own interpretation, museum visits was still quite not a popular habit or exhibition visit was still was not quite a popular habit among citizens in Hong Kong. I mean, now maybe a bit better, but in 1997, it wasn't much of such. So, yeah, the exhibition itself probably stayed mostly among the elite, let's say, or the cultural group. And of course, in 1997, the social media wasn't here yet, and it wasn't, let's say, fair enough. It wasn't really easy to really engage a large public, to really focus on one of the issue. And then, of course, around the year of handover, there were also so many other really crazy or important political events also at the moment. But actually, Oscar Ho also actually used the medium of newspaper to publish illustration about local myths around those years. And he's been actually working on this kind of medium for quite a long time. But let's admit it wasn't an era easily engaging, large number of public. And then talking to Luke Ching and other artists also involved, he kind of remembered that the Hong Kong people were still quite well-behaved under the colonial rule. And, there simply wasn't much imagination beyond for maybe further political action. And pointed out by Professor Clark, the development or construction of cultural identity is always, aligned to, some kind of political project, So when there's an urgency, maybe, it will happen. I would like to quickly go through two more cases without extensive explanation, but let you know that then actually nowadays, when it comes to 2014, again, we see, more, actually another team or some other members in Hong Kong actually engaging in different kinds of myth making. I don't know if, maybe some of you here would know about Chen Wen Chai and his team. They actually formulate a group called the Hong Kong Resurgence Order, Hong Kong Phục Hing Bui. And on the day when they established such a group, they actually went to try to break the curse from one of the feng shui master ordered by the Communist Party from China in Lantau Island. It was around the wisdom path, around the Buddha. By the way, the Buddha is actually facing the north, Beijing, China. In purpose, yeah. And so if you would like to have a tourist tour, visit, you're welcome to also visit the wisdom path. So supposedly in this story, there is a big bird protecting Hong Kong called a Gurunda, I don't know. And then, but somehow, actually one of the feng shui master was ordered to actually to make a curse, around the area, so that the bird cannot, would be trapped and cannot protect Hong Kong so much, and they actually had the video about it, about how they actually go there to actually find out this well, they heard about it, and then they went there to actually to identify it, and then to try to break the curse. And then one more example I would like to show would be the Guan Yu's temple, Guan Tai's temple, actually in the occupied site in Mongkok. Well, it's not so much, maybe not myth-making, but then alongside with myth and art, then actually religious practice will also come in line. And actually, this is actually direct political action, I want to say. It was the barricade in the occupied site to protect the people in the occupied area. Besides that, it has the religious outlook. And also, some people actually practice. And by the way, so Hong Kong people are really nice. Besides the traditional like worshipping of the Chinese god, well, not Chinese god, but this Guan Yu, Guan Dai, like a folk, more like a folk worship for Chinese people, not necessarily like so religious. There's also this Sistine Chapel. To actually conclude, would like to raise, yeah, I quote, I actually basically just screen capture this Facebook status, and I want to share with you. So all along the Occupy movement, then, and also thinking about the subjectivity and autonomy, and even maybe autonomy of art, would like to actually quote a local, let's say, film critic, Sam Long Tin. He has kind of he tried to analyze, to give a summary of what the two kind of positions of the local political movement in Hong Kong would be. One would be more taking the realist, materialist position to face the real, to confront the real at all time. And then the other one is more taking the idealist turn to let maybe the myth, let's say the myth, some sort of utopia, to let it lead, the group to go forward. Well, here, Sam Long Tin is not really trying to necessarily criticizing either side, but he also mentioned that for the second, by the way, this is a 主體, this is subjectivity, so it's like going out and this is going in. But he also mentioned that for the second idealist position, it can be dangerous if you're not careful enough. So we can have further discussion later on. And so my question actually in the end is actually possible, as suggested by critical theorists, for example, to have the dialectical conception of art. Can we have all this at the same time? At once its own law, but also subject to law, the art being at once its own purpose and subject to purpose at the same time. To basically confront the real, at all time is so difficult. But in the end, I have this Chinese saying in my mind, which is also probably the ultimate level when you practice Kung Fu or Wushu. Like you have the sword, you don't have the sword, the weapon in your hand, but you do have it in your heart, in your mind, all the time. You have it like, and you don't have it. Let's see if, we can have further discussion about it. Thank you.